I don't know what I'm doing.
You don't know what you're doing. You see,
I
like,
said
it's not-
start a meeting, but I don't have a. I thought you had to enter a meeting ID and a passcode.
I think we're there. Can we do that?
Well, Nan and I are both on.
Yeah. okay.
Progress.
Yeah, you got it.
Hi, Troy. Okay. So. I have a handout for the 3 items to discuss. I have a handout so people can follow on. The Troy can follow, we can follow in print if we like, for the items to discuss. So, to give you 2 of these.
Are we in business? Almost.
Yeah, Troy. And
Thanks. Thank you.
So before I get started, Gary, when your computer has switches on.
I have it off.
I think that is.
Yeah, no, I already turned it, just turned the speakers down.
yeah, I was echoing, so I'm
Oh,
okay
okay.
now.
And I'm going to start.
Oh, and Bob, I can put this on the screen, the big screen if we need it. Bob, if we need this on the screen, I can put it on the screen.
Are we on?
Okay,
We're starting.
okay.
Good morning, everyone. To this meeting of the Geological Safety Committee. We have a forum here today. Gary Ernst is present. Gary
Yes,
and Nan Schuster,
Present.
Bob Rucky. I'm Chuck Rucky, the chair, and we have Troy here. I don't know your last name, Troy. It was applied to be a member. With a committee here, total committee. We will look at the minutes of the last meeting.
What,
Are there any changes or corrections to those meetings, those minutes?
the public comment?
Yeah.
Yes,
Before
one
we
thing
get to
before.
the minutes, we just need to ask, does anybody have a public comment? That's next in my mind, so let me have a little meeting. Are there changes or corrections to the minutes?
no,
Are we, I have no changes or corrections to either of the minutes, February 6th or February 21st.
Gary, do you have any changes?
not to the original meeting in February, not to that one.
Somebody,
Move acceptance of the minutes.
A second.
and the minutes are carried. This is the time when we can let the public ask questions of us, but before that, I want Bob to read the list of things that we are going to talk about at this particular meeting. Okay, so, not necessarily the order that we're going to do it, but in my list, we want to talk about having a process that defines how the town's geologic maps get updated. What is the procedure as it goes through the different committees and parts of the town, from starting the process of updating the maps to being published? Do you ever have a policy or procedure? You'd like to talk about that. Part of that topic is also to talk a bit about trenching. Now, that's not actually part of the process of updating the map, but often the need to update the map is based on things that have been done in the town. Property owners often have things done, benches, boreholes, and other things to see if they can build something. And reports get written, and from those reports, sometimes information comes up that says the town map needs to be changed. So trenching actually is something that can spawn the need for a new map. So we'd like to spend some time talking about the process of trenching. The other things that are out on the official agenda is to talk about what does this committee plan to do in the next year, and we would like to spend some time talking about the charter. What, you know, there's some interest in examining and perhaps changing our charter.
I noticed in the old and in the minutes in one thing and another at the early times, the Geologic Safety Committee met with the town geologist and other luminaries. And the latest iteration of our charge that seems to have been dropped. Seems to me we really do need to be involved with the town geologist, because there can be important, valuable feedback. I have two other quick questions and that I want to insert. And
You can do the microphone,
oh, yeah.
so it's recorded.
Two other things that I really wanted to say. One is the maps themselves, the map themselves that had been authorized and accepted. We are really updating that in terms of some of these things, if there were new boreholes or trenches. So in a way, when you say a new map, you're really talking about updating the existing map. A new map sort of sounds like we're all going out and mapping the whole frigging thing over again. But actually, no, we're building on what we have in the past. The other thing I was going to say was that it seems to me Roy Dutha ought to be a member of our committee now. Why isn't he sitting up here with us?
Because the process hasn't been
Oh, it
completed.
hasn't.
He's applied at the town council. The committee has to respond to the town, and then the council has to,
Oh, well,
appoint
our committee has to respond to the town?
well, or the chair, yeah.
Oh.
The town needs a response from the
Yeah.
committee, and then that will go to the town council, and then the council will appoint him.
Well, yes, and I know
yeah.
we don't appoint them.
Yeah.
We propose, and that would like to see that
Yeah.
as soon as possible,
Yeah.
because we're really using them without a license.
Before we get into a discussion of these points, I'd like to tell the public that after our discussion, we'll have time for you to ask us questions. But at this stage of the meeting beginning, anybody can ask us questions that have nothing, as long as they have nothing to do with the topic of the day, topics of the day. Are there any questions for the committee at this time? If not, we will begin. And once again, we're the very first topic for all of us.
Well, we have three now. You choose which one you want. So we are updating the town map.
They're saying the Carter and update the common now. Let's talk about that.
Then,
And I would like to make a statement.
Mhm.
The town has a town geologist who is actually a member of the company. He doesn't live in the town, and he has not worked with the committee. I think the town should consider that he would not be officially the town geologist, but a consultant only. I see that Mary Huffey was here. Welcome, Mary. Mary is a member of the town council who looks after this committee, and we are glad that you are here. So, Bob, you have thoughts, I know, about this subject of,
So I may actually.
okay, Mary?
so go ahead and.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you turn to page 7 of the handout, Mary, come get a handout. Mary? On page 7, so we're doing the maps first. Process, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so the process for updating,
Yes, that's very good.
is, I'm too far away, okay. The process for updating the maps has been, shall we say, not well defined in the last few years, so we thought that we would make a stab at it and say precisely how we think the process should go. I'm not sure where it goes from here, but I think the committee needs, and I think you agreed, Chet, the committee needs to take a stand on exactly what it thinks the process should be. So this is our discussion item, first discussion item. Okay, so on page 7, Troy, of the handout, yeah? Page 7 of the handout. Last page, or, okay. So it goes something like, the two maps, geologic and ground movement potential maps, are to be updated and maintained in a publicly transparent manner. So there's no changing without a rigorous process. And everyone understands what's being changed and why. And we have actually 11 steps here. We decided for the safety element, one of our recommendations was that the town's map should be updated at least every 5 years. And Gary has suggested within 6 months after a major geologic event.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so that's number 1. Number 2, the procedure, there needs to be a procedure for resolving any disagreement about the maps between this committee and the town's geologist. There are, Gary said that put it quite well, said more eyes are better, but when you get a lot of people looking at a geologic feature, there can be different interpretations. So there needs to be absolute agreement between the town's geologist and this committee. If the committee disagrees, then we just have to work it out. Okay. Third point is that any data information coming from this committee will be given to the town's consulting geologist, will be shared with the geologist, and that can feed into a map update. The flip side of that is that the geologist will be gathering, compiling information from typically homeowners' geotechnical reports. And if he sees items that don't quite, if he sees that the investigations, trenching or boreholes don't fit the map, then he will recommend changes to the map. And those need to be shared with the committee. So it's two-way street here. Okay, number 5, then basically we said that the consulting geologist and the committee need to agree on the changes to the maps before anything is done, any changes are made. Then Cotton Shires is the keeper of the maps, so that's fine. So the consulting geologist will update maps in draft and with the changes that the committee has agreed to. And the maps then would go back, draft maps would go back to the committee. And then the changes, a list of changes and the draft maps would go to the planning commission for their approval. And if the planning commission approves, then the same would go to the town council for final approval. And then the draft maps would be changed to final maps. The consulting geologist would do the final updates. And Cotton Shires maintains the maps, as I said, and then the town would post the maps, updated maps on its website. Does that, okay?
Nice list, a good list of what we should do. And then the main point is that there needs to be a good deal more cooperation between our committee and Cotton Shires. There has been almost no coordination of that type. Ever. We must do our best to change that. Are there any suggestions concerning items that Dan has just mentioned?
Well, yes, I do have one, in the, dare I say, unlikely event that there is a dispute between the town geologist and the Geologic Safety Committee. After all, these are interpretations of a limited amount of data. We will always have only a limited amount of data. But we must make our best guess, best estimate. I should not even use the word guess. It's an estimate, but these are all probabilities. And the thing of it is, it can happen, I am sure, that the town geologist and the safety committee, Geologic Safety Committee, have different interpretations. The question is, how is that resolved? I think the best way is for them all to get together and try to iron out the difficulties by site visits and discussion. But it is always possible that they will be irreconcilable. I hate to say that, but I think it's possible. And the question is, do we want to tippy-toe into a mechanism for resolving such problems? That's really a critical thing here.
Yeah, that's item number 2, the resolution of any differences. But
Yeah.
but we didn't say how it's
How it's
to be done.
established.
Yes,
Well, yeah, with boxing gloves.
yeah,
Well,
exactly.
that is fundamental problem. There are always going to be differences of interpretation. And we have to work together with the hope that we can come to an accommodation that satisfies all parties. But do we need to say anything about what happens if you can't? Perhaps that's.
I think probably so. I think it would be safer. Good, Chad and Bob. So the question is whether in this number 2, resolution of any differences between the committee and the town geologist, exactly how, if we meet, we try to iron things out, we have a site visit, we still can't come to agreement, then what should happen?
I think we would just have to wait and see what the problem is at the time.
Well, no, you're past that. You've already met with the geologist, you've hashed it out. You've had a site visit, you've thought about it, you've had umpteen discussions, and you still can't come to agreement. Then what is there? Do you ask a third party to come in?
Well, I have 3 comments about this. One, we can drive ourselves crazy with hypotheticals about what may happen, or even if it's likely, and how to resolve it is difficult. Sometimes in maybe meetings like this one, an issue gets raised, and sometimes it's a tough one. I think I'd like to know what everybody else thinks, but this is a tough one, and sometimes it's best to sleep on it, think it over. What I'd like to know is, man, I think you've come up with a great list as far as the initial stab at it. I think it's wonderful. Clearly, this idea of how to deal with conflict resolution is important. How we actually design into the procedure, how the conflicts, should they occur, get resolved, is clearly not on the list, and it's something that maybe we ought to talk about. I mean, can we resolve that right now in this meeting, or do we need more time?
I think we would need more time unless anybody has some great suggestion. This is a very difficult topic. We hope we never get to this point. Hope that we can resolve everything with the town geologists. But it's certainly possible, as Gary points out, that there would be conflicts in which we cannot resolve them between him and us.
If things get really bad, I would like to see an outside party. We do have other resources that I don't have any contacts with, but there is the state geological survey, there's a US geological survey, we have professors at Stanford. And we bring in some way to try to mediate if that's necessary. I'm not sure how to do it, I'm very much interested in what others recommend or suggest.
Well, I would suggest the US Geological Survey as a disinterested third party. They're only after the final truth as far as it can be. If a property owner like Stanford is involved in it, there can be the problem of,
There are a number of technical firms around that we
Yeah.
could call in if we should want to. I think that we could probably find people to help us resolve any problem. We just have to wait until that time comes. Maybe sometime we could put together a list of the people we might contact should we have a difficulty of the kind we're discussing. Would that be acceptable to people?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. The alternative to bringing someone out, a disinterested third party in is to say town geologist wins or the committee prevails. And I don't think either of those is the right approach. So I can't see any alternative
Mhm.
to bringing in someone else.
Well, that's
Disinterested.
why I said US Geological Survey is the ultimate arbiter. They have more geologic expertise than the rest of the society.
No, is it time for public comment?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I think this is really good thinking and very clear, and it looks to me like we have a quorum, is that correct?
We do.
that's-
We're under the Brown Act.
That's great, and so, all these things can be discussed, with special exception to not mentioning the things Stanford or the, or any of the current, projects. I love the idea of, did you say, don't make him the town geologist, make him the town geologist consultant,
Yeah,
Consulting job.
sort of consulting geologist?
Yeah.
That right away fixes a lot, if you want to say it like that. And having the final arbitration with the USGS sounds perfect. And not particularly revolutionary.
USGS is a big organization. That would be nice to have a short list of people within USGS that we would like to have.
Could you just say it with somebody who has visual interest?
That sounds like a wise thing to do.
Not interest, but expertise.
this is a really important topic that Gary has brought up, because I have tried to get in touch with the town geologist and I've never been able to. Town sheriff would not let me talk to him. Apparently, he has said that he doesn't want to talk to us. So I can see that we might well have difficulties requiring a third party to help us. So we will have to consider that. Any further topic, discussion of this topic?
It's a really question. I really am impressed with your proposed list, man, and I like it. As is, we can obviously, we need to add more to it, but I don't see that there's anything wrong with your list.
No.
We're now talking about adding some things, mostly about getting conflict resolution, but just on its face, for what you've done, I say thank you very much. It's really good.
By the way, I've asked Bob Lucky here to take the minutes for this meeting.
So the question is, do we want to go ahead and approve this recommendation officially, or do we want to think about it another month and bring it up again at the next meeting?
We have some work that we can do to perhaps to people at the Geological Survey and other people that we may know who could advise us as to other technical companies who could come in and help us if we have a need. I think we need to discuss this.
You have two things. Not that it's needed, but I would like to see some kind of acknowledgement that your list is a great start. It sounds like we need to add some words, or would like to add words as the conflict resolution, with the anticipation that at our next meeting, we can approve it in the final form. And I guess the next step would be to submit it to the town council to see if they agree with us.
Yeah, Mary, is that the procedure? It would go to the council?
Yeah.
Okay.
One thing that jumps out on this looking way is switching that to 5 numbers. We've already been through for 7 numbers, so
Yes.
you can switch it back to 5 in discussion.
Wait a minute. We're not, are you looking, no, I'm just looking at page 7. That's the list we were discussing. Okay.
I think we should move on.
Okay, well, do we want, Gary, are you okay with waiting until next, updating, maybe
Yeah,
talking to people at the survey?
Actually, I was going to say that I think we could approve this as our document. There is a further problem that requires additional work, and that could be a separate document, relatively short. But in the case of irreconcilable differences of interpretation, then outside sources must be used, including blah, blah. You could do it that way. That way, this gets this on the road. I think that we all agree this is a fine document, as you said, and did, and we should make sure that everybody knows we're going to go forward with this.
Okay.
The fundamental problem may never arise. Let's hope not, but I think because of our past experience, and Chet just mentioned that, it is more than likely. I tippy-toed around it and said in the unlikely event, but I think it's more than unlikely, it's likely that there will be problems.
Okay, thank you for that. I want to kind of take I need to make 2 statements. One, we're in the process of getting Dad new hearing aids, but he doesn't have them. He is having some trouble today hearing what you said. So I want to paraphrase.
Okay,
So I know that this is supposed to be a public meeting and we're supposed to be talking to the public for a minute because of this issue. So Gary's suggesting that we move this.
Bob's talking to his father in the role of interpreter.
Well,
That's Gary's saying.
there,
Gary, I think your idea is very good.
well,
So I look for them to want to do that.
yeah, I do. I would like to vote on this. I think the point is, this document is relatively uncontroversial. It is detailed and shows how we are going to get the map improvement rolling. The next thing that we're going to do, and in case of conflict, the necessity of conflict resolution on interpretations, that might never be authorized by the town. For all I know, they may just not like what we're saying. But I think we need to do that. I think this is clearly non-controversial. The other one could be controversial. And I want to see that we work on that as best we can. So this deserves to be in the record without, I would say, making it more complicated to be passed by having the conflict resolution part added to it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're separating out the conflict resolution section to be considered at a later meeting. And we'd approve the 11-step process here, more or less as it is.
This is getting us started with as much as we can do. And the other, I would hope we will be able to resolve with, back and forth discussion and everybody modifying their interpretations a little. But in the case that we can't resolve them, at least we have this.
We've called for approval of this list.
What, okay, Mary had a comment, did you?
No, I didn't, I think, from my point of view, I could take this document to the town lawyer and present it with the conflict resolution part of it.
Hmm.
And she felt it needed to be removed in order for it to pass through. So if you made it 12 here and said, in the unlikely event of conflict, and you will just take us to yes.
Well, okay, no. Okay, so you'd pass it by the town lawyer. Okay, no, look at number 2, and that does say that there should be a procedure for the resolution of conflict, although it doesn't say what it is.
It's established.
Yeah, but it doesn't say how.
It's a little like belling the cat. It's a good idea to have it, but the question is, how do you do it? And
It'll be interesting to follow this through.
Or you could say a procedure will be followed.
Rather complicated, than we're trying to vote on.
Well,
I'm happy to have you vote on it without 12 saying specifically pointing out how we the it needs another outside opinion, which is you will get a chance to at least hear as opposed to just managerial.
yes, it would be better for a science-based outside authority rather than the town council, because they have their own agenda anyway, as understandable. So it would be better if it were somebody who had no involvement in the
yeah,
politics.
One of the things that we have,
If I can just bring it with that discussion point.
Mhm.
so read as it is with just an allusion to a conflict resolution procedure, but no details. I mean, no, with number 2.
I would add some words in there and outside. Yeah. Say an outside.
Okay, so let's put that in number 2. Do you want to change the wording of number 2? By an outside,
A disinterested third party.
okay.
so do you have some words that you'd like to add? Yeah,
Yeah, I'm thinking, in case of an irreconcilable disagreement between the committee and the town's consulting geologist, a disinterested third party knowledgeable in the field will be chosen to resolve the conflict. Will be consulted to resolve the conflict.
That seems reasonable. For further comment,
Okay,
this outside scientific party.
just disinterested outside scientific
Yes, scientific.
party. Okay, so in case of irreconcilable
Mhm.
disagreement,
Interpretations.
pardon?
I had geologic interpretations, irreconcilable geologic interpretations.
Disagreement of,
That's really what we're talking about, the interpretations. We should be able to agree on the facts on the ground that can be seen and documented.
okay. So I have in case of irreconcilable disagreement with a
In case of irreconcilable geologic interpretation.
irreconcilable
That's
geologic
all you- yeah.
interpretation
Well,
and outside a disinterested outside scientific party will be chosen to resolve the conflict? Does that work?
Will be agreed on.
Agreed upon, disinterested, outside, scientific party will be chosen, be selected to resolve the disagreement. Oh. Okay, so,
It's sort of like a mediation clause.
yeah, something like,
Rather than a conflict resolution, it's a mediation.
Yeah.
well, maybe Cara Silver would have some idea about that, but
Yeah, but if I give her some words, she'll.
wait, what did you have before disinterested? I didn't write it. I've forgotten it.
What do I have?
Yeah,
This is
some,
the third party expert.
no, we had disinterested.
Give it third party.
Geology.
And
Yeah.
when you finish writing, tell us exactly what the words are that you were proposing.
Well, I'm not, this might not be the best wording to resolve. Okay, I have so far. In case of irreconcilable differences of geologic interpretations, a disinterested outside scientific party will be chosen. Will be chosen to resolve the conflict. But agreeable, what'd you say? What to say that both parties have to agree on this person? Is that right? Okay, case.
Yeah.
Okay, an agreed upon, disinterest, agreed upon,
Disinterested, scientific, third party.
agreed upon, disinterested, outside, scientific, third party. Well, well, disinterested in how this poor homeowner's lot gets put on the map or not. It's not on the map. Okay, let's just agreed upon, disinterested, outside, scientific, third party will be chosen to resolve the conflict.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm happy with that.
Yep,
Okay with
I'm
that.
happy with that. That's the hard
Okay.
part.
The geologic difference, different. Okay. You want to get rid of the word conflict? You don't want to. Okay. And fine.
to resolve the differences instead of conflict. Yeah, conflict is a little strong.
The word conflict is in the language.
Oh, the last word is conflict. So I'm trying to get rid of the last word, not the conflict.
Okay,
Resolve the differences.
yes.
To resolve differences.
In case of irreconcilable disagreement, let's say over geologic interpretation, an agreed upon, disinterested, outside, scientific, third party will be chosen to resolve the differences.
Man's suggestions, I think they're very good. Thank you, man.
I'll make a motion that we approve the list with the changes that man just
Second,
added.
Gary?
I'd second.
There was seconded, yeah.
Accept it?
Yeah,
Then,
to accept,
then this wording is accepted.
okay.
I think that one of the things that this brings up is the need for the town council and this committee to get together. We're talking about things that are important to the town, like, for example, the importance of the Cotton Shire to work with us and how that should be defined. I think we can go on to the next topic, which I believe is going to be pension. Is that go on? Up that one, right? Okay, yes, I think that's the next topic that I think we should discuss. tell us what you have thought about.
Okay, so today, when somebody does a trench, the final product is often a drawing, sometimes they refer to as a cartoon, but it's just a very simplified representation of what was found in the trench. I think that it would be very useful for trenching in the future to include a digital photo mosaic of the cleaned trench surface, so that this, whatever was uncovered in the trench can be always examined in the future instead of relying on just a very crude drawing. I understand that nobody's ever required such a thing like this. We might be the first. If we actually like this idea, something that needs to be done is to have some language that I'm not fully prepared to explain at this point. We grew up on a situation where somebody puts a photo mosaic and has it printed on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and that's the entire photo mosaic, but the thing is 100 feet long. You know, the resolution on this piece of paper is terrible. It doesn't tell you anything. So there ought to be some kind of language of some kind of minimal resolution. Of what can you see down to a centimeter or something? I don't know the answer to what that should be, but I'm raising it now so that we can at least start thinking about it. The last thought before I finish is, should there be some kind of a subcommittee of this one to kind of flesh out this idea? And, I guess before we have a subcommittee, we need to find out from the committee, how do you, the rest of this committee feel about this kind of idea?
I think we need to, before, I'm prepared to talk about a subcommittee, but there are many more things to be talked about concerning trenching. We have discussed it.
Well, we talked about having a photo mosaic.
Yes.
And there's a question, if I may.
Yeah.
Add something here. There's a question of, having live access to the trench while it's open.
This is another one of those problems in which geologists, at least geologists, is involved. He's the one who often looks at these trenches and makes a decision as to what's there. But he should not be the person to make that decision without discussing the problem with the town committee. You have other comments concerning
Just one. One comment. Thank you for raising the idea of having access to trenches and borehole logs. I think it should be great that we should be allowed, if somebody on the committee wants to see it. It's a different animal altogether, but it's required that we always actually have somebody go down into the hole. There may be some properties where we're, and we feel like it's not going to be controversial, and maybe not anybody wants to go down there and look at it. But I think that there should be, the opportunity should be there. I really don't want to see a situation where the committee is not allowed to go and look at a trench or look at a borehole.
In addition, we need to talk about what kind of trench should be looked at, how it should be dug, and what should be done. Trenches are not very helpful unless one wall of the trench is polished in some way, so that the details of the geologic details can be seen and discussed and photographed, as Bob has suggested. But we really need to know what a trench would be like, and how, and the town people need to know if they want to dig a trench, they must follow certain procedures. And for that reason, and this is a very complicated subject, I've been thinking about it a little, and I think that we do need a subcommittee to work out the details of what a trench should be like, who should see it, who should think whether there is something there or not. And I would think that Nan, you and Bob would make a good subcommittee for this topic. And there's a book that we've been thinking somewhat about it, because it's a very complicated subject.
Are you volunteering us to go down into the trenches? Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, that's fine.
Well, no, this is a recommendation.
May I add something here? Go ahead. Do you want to talk to that?
Go ahead.
Okay, I would put borehole sampling in the same category with trenches. I think that a member of the committee should be invited when the boreholes are being sampled, should see the cores or the samples that are brought up, and should be able to take away just a small, couple of spoonfuls of samples from different stratigraphic units, if that's appropriate.
That's a good suggestion, for the boreholes are often used, how they should be conducted and what kinds of, analyses should be made of the core. These are things that need to be talked about and for which we need resolution. And that's for the committee to decide. I think this is an excellent suggestion.
Yeah, but thank you. I can see situations in which, if one of us is there at the core sampling and the geotechnical firm has its geologist, engineering geologists there, interpreting the different stratigraphic units, there could be right on site a difference of opinion. It's very likely, because very frequently with boreholes, the first judgment of what a unit is it turns out not to be correct in the end.
An easy thing to do.
I'm sure
I
that
wonder,
you and Bob will come up with interesting points regarding who has more holes and how to study,
Thank you.
how to accept what should be accepted.
Yeah,
What kind of a report should be accepted.
okay. And
I
think,
would like to ask a question, if I can get into the conversation here. Are we sure that one size fits all? You're talking about 100-foot long trenches, which sound like geotechnical firms are doing it over the course of months with lots of equipment and one thing. And I don't imagine too many property owners are going to do anything like that. And so if they're not going to drill a water well either, for that matter. But so I'm not quite sure how much local property owners are involved. As a matter of fact, the only experience I've had in Portola Valley Ranch is that most property owners didn't even want to see trenches done because they might find faults that they didn't want because of the property values problem. So we're talking about an organization, it seems to me, that needs to understand the various geologic hazards and can undertake these studies. I would think most geotechnical firms are already doing that sort of thing. The trench across the Stanford Wedge was, while I disagree with some aspects of what they did, you could pretty well see it. Huh?
We're not supposed to talk about it.
Okay, about what, really? Okay,
could we say, I'm sorry, could we say, Gary, that a recent trench of 183 feet in length was opened and then closed within the week?
was it that fast?
That was
close.
that fast.
Wow. Well, yeah, then that's the sort of thing you want to defend against, it seems to me. And those are going to be geotechnical firms that have a responsibility, and we want to indicate what that responsibility is. And for those things, what you say is quite right. But I would not like to see the suggested requirements for documentation to be applied down to really small projects. But of geotechnical firms that are doing something big, I was unaware that they closed. Well, I can imagine why they might, because of a matter of liability, keeping an open trench.
Yeah.
It's only the big projects that I think we really want to make sure everybody has access to.
Big projects.
Yeah,
The project,
There's one additional topic that's related to trenching that I'd like to mention. I don't want to. Topic, I don't think we can resolve in this meeting, but at least get a conversation started. Trenching has, I've seen it multiple times, it's been referred to as the gold standard for which to research faults. And that language, a gold standard, implies things like you're going to get gold-plated results. And that's not always true. I know several examples of things that are already finished in the town. It should not be controversial. I'm not going to mention places, but there's things that are already done, but there were trenches done, and it implied that there is no fault. But there's also lots of evidence that there is a fault. I'm talking about places in the ranch in Blue Oaks, ancient history. So that's some examples of where trenching has been done, and trenching is expensive, and it's talked about as a gold-plated standard, which elevates the expectation that you're going to be getting really good data, and often really good data is produced, but not always. And there needs to be sort of an understanding of the expectation of what's actually going to be produced. It can be very, I can understand that person who doesn't fully understand this can say, well, wow, we just spent a boatload of money.
Yeah.
And it's the gold standard. So what's the result? And it may be that the result is kind of confusing. So there's a second part. One is, the first part is to have some kind of a standard of what should be considered an acceptable report of the geologic investigation. And then there's another component of trying to come up with some kind of language to explain what should be the expectation of what actually is done. I mean, I'm aware of situations elsewhere where, elsewhere meaning nothing controversial in this town, where there's very good evidence of fault, but there was a trench dug in place, and they didn't find it. Well, under a gold-plated standard, you think, well, if you didn't find it in the trench, the fault doesn't exist. But when you look at all of the other evidence that the fault exists, well, you've got a conflict. And just trenching it doesn't really resolve necessarily the conflict.
Once again, we can get into some trouble whereby the township officers may not agree with what members of this committee believe. So once again, we might have to bring in an outside consultant, outside person. Or just as we talked about previously, we have to do that with trenches.
That's a very good
I think
point.
that point should be considered.
That's
Thoroughly by the subcommittee.
Okay, Gary has a comment.
no, that's all I was trying to say was that it's really the geotechnical firms you want to have do this. It's whatever some homeowner is going to do poking around in his own yard. I don't think it applies to that. It applies to something that is an attempt to be scientifically discovering. So the geotechnical firms are the ones you really want to straighten out, I think.
Yeah.
Are we at the stage, it sounds like we're at a stage in this conversation to, the next step would be, could there be, or could there be, I guess, an ad hoc committee to produce something for more sorry, I'm saying this well. I apologize for not speaking clearly. But something needs to be put forward for the committee to ultimately make a recommendation to the town council. And there ought to be some kind of a subcommittee to at least put together some language for the committee to approve.
Yeah, let's get something that we can look at.
Okay. So there are several parts to this problem. One is that the homeowner may want a trench dug, and this committee, subcommittee, can take on the job of deciding what the homeowner should do. But the town shires may say that if you want to build at a certain place, you have to have a trench dug. So that opens up another set of problems. That who's going to pay for all of this and how much data can we obtain from the trench? This is a very complicated subject, so the subcommittee's got a big job on its shoulders. I think we should, not just accept my recommendation, I think we should vote on this.
Well, it's
You have
not,
another comment, man?
yeah, it's not technically on the agenda, so I think we need to put it, to work on it over the next month and perhaps put it on the agenda for a vote at the next meeting. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Are we allowed to, even though it's not on the agenda, to create a subcommittee in this session, or do we have to wait till the next session?
Okay, so let's see what's on approval, we see the discussion work plans for discussion of the committee work plans. Discussion for updating map. I think it certainly falls under those two subjects.
Yes, I think it does too.
Okay.
We can put it in the work plan, that we will define
Yeah,
the,
that you elected to appoint a subcommittee.
I actually think it should be up to the committee to make it, to have a subcommittee. Why go further?
Well, the issue is, because of the Brown Act procedures of how you do things in the agenda and they probably ahead of time. Are we following the right rules to create a subcommittee now? Or do we have to wait a month?
I think you are.
Okay, so assuming that we can, I'm gonna make a motion that we create a subcommittee that will be tasked with producing language for the committee to consider on how to create standards for trenching and boreholes. And that the committee will then evaluate and ultimately produce a recommendation to the town council.
Second,
We should agree that Man and Bob would be on that subcommittee. I think we should vote on what Bob said with that in mind.
Okay, you got a second?
I've already seconded.
second.
All right, Bob?
I agree.
All in favor, say aye.
Good job.
And I will take it to the board and figure out whether it should be an ad hoc committee or a subcommittee and find out.
I'm willing to follow whichever it is supposed to be.
Yeah.
We'll follow,
Exactly.
we'll work within those rules.
Okay, Mary, is your microphone on? I'm not sure your voice is being recorded on the video. It would be helpful.
The town liaison will speak with the town lawyer to ascertain whether subcommittee or not is proper label.
Oh, subcommittee versus ad hoc, is that right? Okay,
The next thing on the agenda is to talk about what does this committee want to do in the coming year, and
I think that we need to give a lot of attention to how we communicate with Cotton Shire. I think that should be one of them. Big problem. We have to work with the town council on that. It's not a simple topic.
okay.
So the thoughts on this, Mom?
Yeah, my thought on that is that the committee should be allowed to invite a representative from Cotton Shires to meetings when it's appropriate to discuss issues.
it's been done in the past. I mean, you
Yeah.
can go to the ancient history of Purple Line,
Yeah,
where Shires has brought people to do our safety.
okay. So I guess we would need permission from the town council to, occasionally to invite the consulting geologist. Of course, he's paid by the hour. So we have to be cognizant of time that's being used. But I think the committee, when it feels it's appropriate, would be able to
Yeah.
invite cut and chairs.
We have two things on the agenda as a last, it's 11 o'clock. Others are like, we open for the rest of the committee to discuss an opinion, but one of them is the town, the committee's charter, changing the charter, and the other one is what does the committee want to do in this coming year? Do we have time and interest to do both? But if not, which one do we want to cover, or do we do both?
I would like, if we don't have time to get to one, I would leave the charter for the next time because it's already been updated to some extent for 7 members and for Monday meetings, Monday once a week. So, but
So your
Which-
interest right now is to talk about what would be our plan for the
the
coming year.
plans, because the committee of committees is meeting tomorrow to discuss the town's, how the town's, town council's priorities will be implemented by the committees. How the committee's work plans will fit into the council's priorities. And I think that we've got a good start on it because we were working on the safety element in great detail. And out of that arose a number of projects that we think we could start immediately.
So then if you have a list of ideas of what you would like to see the committee do.
Yeah, I do. If you go to page,
A little bit off topic, because we were talking about how to deal with the cotton shires. And in the past, we have met with the so-called town geologists in the field. And town didn't have to pay for anything. I'm sure were interested in what the problem was in the field, and our committee was to join them, talk about things. So we have that kind of cooperation. We have had that in the past, and we need to have it in the future. How much the town needs to be involved, and whether or not there's a payment to the cotton shire, these things need to be resolved. So the committee understands what we can do and what we cannot do in talking to cotton shire's people.
I feel we already covered that in the last discussion.
covered it in what?
In your recommendation for the charter. I think you can move on to the next business.
Okay. So we'll find out, charter is important, very important. And we'll need to figure out whether it fits into the charter or it just is a recommendation to the council and with an understanding that we would have access to the sites and to the town geologist whenever we think it's needed. Why don't we leave that? Could we leave that open for now?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Fine.
The next item is changing agenda items to the work plan for fiscal year 7/1/23 to 6/30/24.
Oh, you know, I actually have it from roll.
Okay.
Yes, Mary does. Wait, wait, in the handout, let me show you what as far as we've gotten before you. Okay, pages 5 and 6 of the handout. Page 5 is the list of town council's priorities as they were, as I took these from the minutes of the town council meeting. And the next page has the same left-hand column, the town's priorities, but I've started to put in some activities that we could do that we thought of when we were working on the safety element that we think need to be done and how they fit into the town council's priorities. So look at 5 and 6.
then if you look on page 6 on the second column, the column on the right, that's essentially what it's doing. What I understand is your suggestion on what you work on.
Yeah, absolutely. I went through the recommendations we had made for the safety element. And several things jumped out at me that were really projects that fit very nicely into the town's priorities.
Mhm.
I think it's a good fit. So,
We're
okay,
gonna have trouble finding work to do.
no, okay, so Mary, do you want to take it? Because, you're representing
No,
the council.
it shows that maybe everybody just doesn't know. The town council just went through reassessment of its priorities and came up with these, this list of 4. And with this exact idea that the working with committees, we come back to the committee and find out what kind of projects they got fit into that. So you're like way ahead. It's Wednesday, and it's true that the fit is fabulous. I mean, I think everybody's mind, the idea that we need these things done. So thank you, you did that beautifully.
Well, I was listening on Zoom to the county council meeting. And as you went through the priorities, I was going in my mind, check, 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 check. It was really a good fit for us.
Yeah, so it's very important that we all have in mind priorities, and if not, we need to investigate them. So far, so good.
Okay. Could we briefly, okay, let's wait for a second. I'd like to go. Could we look at the items in the second column and see if you agree, see if I've gotten them in the right places? Or if you want to add anything more. I left the second column free on the previous page as a worksheet in case anyone wanted to jot things down. But you could just add them on page 6. Is that okay to go through this?
I'm happy to do it. Would you help me read this out loud or just read it silently?
Yeah, do you want to? You go ahead.
This is, I'm reading from the second column of page 6, which under safety is to do research of the 1906 earthquake, seismic hazards in the town. We need to recognize if there are cascading hazards that are in the town. Hazard and risk analysis and research models. Produce an evacuation planning. So I'm adding a few extra words.
Yeah, evacuation plan that takes into consideration multiple hazards.
Seismic safety education program.
Which is actually on the old, the geologic safety yeah, it's on the old charter, so, but, yeah.
We have a category called resiliency, and the 4 items in there. The first is resiliency of roads and utilities during and after the major geological events. Meet with other safety committees, town staff, and utility companies to define long-term goals for resiliency and infrastructure. Develop a map of road and utility line crossings, all known faults.
Not just.
Research methods in use to protect utility lines and roads during earthquakes and landslides.
And that was, it's a little research project to see what other communities are doing to protect their infrastructure. I know there is work going on right now in East Bay on that. PG&E is doing that. So, you know, it's one item in the safety element that will go before the council is to protect utilities and roads for new subdivisions and fault zones. So the to me, the obvious expansion of that is, you know, if you're protecting utilities and roads for a few residents, a few dwellings, multiply it by 1,000 to protect the town. It's even more important to protect the town.
So the next,
The committee has already worked quite a bit on. Up these suggestions. Finish with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not sure what the town could do with our suggestions. The people in the town who can become involved in details like, what are we going to do about where a gas line or electrical line crosses a known fault, for example? Who in the town would be able to take care of these things? We don't know.
That's a very good question.
I'd like to address this, I know this has been brought up by town council people, don't know the names, but that, you know, the resiliency is really an issue that needs to be taken care of by the utilities. But it would seem like there is room for perhaps maybe the three or give us direction otherwise, to work with the utilities, to let them at the very least know where the geologic hazards are, so they can create the plans that are necessary for them to do the work that will actually give us the resiliency that we want. Is that a fair?
Absolutely, yes. And, you know, just as an example, right here, sort of right in front of us where the San Andreas crosses the road. No, let me take, the first crossing in Woodside at Farm Hill and Sand Hill. You could put a pipe that has the ability, say for water, if the water goes through there or the gas, you could put in a pipe that has expansion and contraction, whatever is needed, capability. So you could change the conduits, change the pipes, or you could put shut-off valves on each side of the fault zone. So, you know, there are different approaches and some are more expensive than others, but I think it's really important for everyone in town to recognize the hazard we have and to participate in the discussion if they want to on resilience of utilities. Maybe people don't care, you know, there's a big earthquake and you're without water for months, maybe that's okay. But I think that,
I don't think so.
no, I don't like it either.
I-
But I like the idea of moving from reacting, you know, responding and rebuilding after an earthquake to thinking more long-term and proactively and planning for the next earthquake and planning what we can do to mitigate or minimize the disruption of utilities.
I'd like to talk a little bit about what you just said, just for clarity. You mentioned this place that in the town to the side where San Andreas Fault crosses Portola Road near Family Farm Road and it's near Searsville. And I'm going to make some assumptions here because I've never talked to anybody to see if I got it right. I could be getting it wrong, but there are two fire hydrants. And they're each on opposite sides of the San Andreas Fault. And it implies to me that they've already figured out a way to put some valves and use the fire hydrants. And after the earthquake, you could put some hoses between the two fire hydrants, reconnect things, and you can get the water flowing again after the pipe that's in the ground will be broken. So that's perfect. If I got it right, that may be some resiliency you've already desired and desirable and already there. But that's an example of what we like to see done elsewhere in the town where it's needed.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an excellent example. So you could bridge the fault zone. You could bridge a broken pipe if you've decided not to replace it with a pipe that can adjust to the slip that's likely to occur at that area. Then you could turn off the water on both sides and then bridge it with say fire hoses. If we're to maintain a supply of water, flow of water to the town temporarily.
So I've been going through this list on page 6 with that column, and there's just two more main subjects.
The most important item that causes the San Andreas Fault is are the pipes that come down from the big water tank up on the hill. Coal mine ridge on the ranch property. We have to know that we can take care of getting water down to the town, especially if there's a fire.
Absolutely.
So there, this ought to be one of the highest priorities that we focus on in some way to make sure that water can flow down across the fault. The fault is definitely, the location is known. Been known for quite some time now. But what the water company is doing about this problem, we don't know. But we think it should be consulted. And the town needs to work with that company to make sure that in a seismic event, that we are assured of having water come down. If there is a fire, this would be absolutely required. This is probably the most important single item concerning utilities causing faults that needs to be discussed and solved. Must be solved.
Yeah.
I'm gonna continue, just finish with what I started, one of these lists hopefully quickly. Next one is on the topic of long-term planning and projects. And there's some of this with resiliency, which we just been talking about. A goal is to preserve the functioning critical utilities and roads during and after the geologic hazard.
So, yeah, so here you have the long-term project set out, but in the next year, we could meet with utility companies, or the town could, and develop a map of the fault crossing so that everyone understands what's involved. But there are short-term projects within the long-term goal here.
This is a very important long-term goal. We definitely should consider it. Seriously.
The next thing is to maintain a page on geohazards on the town website.
And that's actually a repeated item 4 under safety, the first row.
And
So we would have a, my idea is that we would have a page on the town's website that would especially be written for new people coming to town so they could understand what the hazards are, you know, what they've gotten into when they bought some property or just moved in, and have links to important resources. Yeah.
the last item in that section is continuing research on geologic hazards in Colorado.
Yeah. Yep.
The last section is accountable governance. Just 2 items. And one is to revise the map. Students, would you like to study it? Revise the map update process to be public and transparent.
And that fits with the,
We've just
so-
been doing, just
yeah.
doing.
what we've just done, and that fits with the council's goal of transparency, good
Last
governance.
item is to make scanned geologic, geotechnical, geologic data and reports readily accessible, and starts the scanning process in the next fiscal year. That's a very ambitious list.
Yeah.
We are volunteers, but it would be great to see how much, if maybe all of it, but if at the very least, it'd be great to see what we can accomplish out of this. So thank you, Nan, for coming up with this.
Yeah.
Well,
list.
Thank you. Well, I'm looking for other ideas. So if we don't have enough to do, Gary.
Yeah, this is plenty to do, it seems to me.
Okay. But
It's really good.
thank you. So Mary, you understand the town's priorities better.
No, let's build for geological safety. We prioritize the work.
Okay, but the devil's in the details here, whether the town council would really like the idea of working on resilience of utilities.
Yes, that is what they said.
They did? Okay, good. This is,
They do.
it is very good news. Yeah. Okay.
We will certainly have to follow the town council wants.
We do.
We have quite a list of things to do.
Yeah,
We have a subcommittee to work on one problem, and there are other problems that we, as a committee, have to pay attention to. And we will be doing that. We will be very busy.
Okay.
All of this work presents big problems for this committee, because the committee is made of people who have their own professional work to move forward with. We're asked to do things that are time consuming, and we have our own time consuming problems. This is a busy committee.
Speaking
Town
of,
council really needs to understand that, and maybe that's one of the things that'll come out tomorrow night. Are there any further topics to be discussed?
yeah, okay. The charter briefly, I don't think we're going to be able to get through, I mean, to reword our charter, but if we could think about it, discuss what we've got and where we think it should go. And I
Yeah.
think that would be helpful. And then perhaps at the next meeting, I hope Pat will be here, make a decision on the wording for what we think the wording for the charter should be. And
yeah,
that makes sense?
yeah,
Okay.
I like the old one.
I do
Much of the
too.
old one,
I do too.
1999. But I do want to say, do you want to establish when the next meeting will be?
Well, we sort of have an automatic process.
Yes.
We're going to be meeting from now on. It
Second
will
month,
automatically be established based on what, the second Monday at 10
Yeah.
o'clock of each month, unless we cancel it.
okay. Well, then I will put it down in my data book to remind me when the time comes.
So I'd like to briefly talk about the subject on the charter. I'm aware of 3 versions. There's the original version. There was a version that was created in 2010 with minor modification. And then there's the current version, which I don't have a copy.
You do. Yeah, pages 1, 2, and 3 of the handout.
The current one?
That's what is on the town's website on the Geologic Safety Committee.
Apologize to everybody.
No, it's okay.
The original geologic safety committee, which I was on in the 60s.
Oh.
And there was a written statement of our ask. But everybody on the committee knew that we existed in order to answer questions that the town might have for us. We were willing to do, and we would always be able to come together and help the town. That was the way we operated. And in fact, the town did ask the ad hoc committee to come together and come to some conclusions. One of which was to establish the distance the building should be from known and proposed faults. This was done without a written agreement as to what the town wanted from us, but we knew what that was, and we were asked, and that was followed for a long time until somehow somebody in the town wrote up a statement as to what our committee should be. I just wanted everybody to know what we started off with, and that it was very successful.
So it sounds as if it started off less formally. Let me see it.
It was not formally. That's as much as we needed at that time.
Yeah,
But now, I guess we have to be very formal, so we need to come up with well-written statement.
These two, the 89 and the 2000.
Yeah, we have the 89, which Bob found, the original charter. He went back and looked, and then there's a charter we had before 2 years ago,
Mhm.
2000. And then Craig Hughes rewrote the charter into apparently one sentence. Or maybe, I'm not even sure whether it's the whole charter or he just rewrote the first sentence of it.
You just said that they may be confused. Well, I know there is this one sentence thing that seems to be the charter.
Well, turn your,
I'm looking at page one.
Yeah, that's
where
it.
else is
Yeah.
More than the charter on page one.
that's all that Craig Hughes sent out as the new charter when he updated charters. 2 years ago, I believe it was. And to me, it's a good first sentence. I mean, if you take the 2000 charter, it's a good sentence. You could use the Craig's sentence instead of the objectives that were in the 2000 charter. But then you really want to specify duties and functions or responsibilities and roles as in the original charter, which I think Gary likes. But could we think about this and work on it for next week? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think everyone,
Everyone think about it. Think about what form it should take. I think one sentence is not enough. But maybe the sentence that's in,
One sentence would be nice.
I'm very curious to see what the charters of other committees look like.
Yeah.
Very different purposes. They don't need the same. We don't need the same charters they do. Nice to
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
understand what other things are like. So those are the things that I will be looking at before the next meeting.
that's good.
We at the point where we've covered everything that we want to in today's meeting.
I think so.
Yep.
I'm just interested if there are any comments from, we have an audience of 3. Any comments, Rita or Rita?
I just want to say that I'm so happy that you guys are meeting on a regular basis. And I know that your list for the future is large, but there's been such a gap in this committee and with the town that I really appreciate you looking forward on what needs to be done. And somehow it'll get done, if not in the next 2 years, in the next 10 years, but I do appreciate your planning to get those things done.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you. We want to congratulate you for coming. Here, you've been giving thought to this committee, and the fact that you have done that and want to be in touch with us is great for us. We now know that we have a way of getting to the town council, and that's marvelous. We have finished all of our business.
Yeah, I just,
There's one other.
yeah, has the letter already been written?
Yeah.
Well, okay, well, that's, okay,
This committee is aware, excuse me, aware that there are different kinds of committees. Some of them follow the Brown Act and some don't have to. We are not aware of the details of this different kinds of committees. We need to do that before we expand. Well, the leadership is very good. Yeah, that's part of it. I'd like to have him on. It's going to be a question. We.
Okay, I think Mary's saying, yeah, I think Mary's saying that the next step is for actually the chair to produce a letter to the council.
That would be what I've done in the past. To decide what it should do. Always, has always had professional people, professional geologists on its staff. We're now talking about a significant change to employ in. There may be very good reasons to do that, but we have not discussed that as a committee. We need a little time to talk about what our future is. Why, you know? That means we need to know more about these committees that might not have to follow a Brown Act. If they don't have knowledge of what that sort of committee is all about. But we know that we are very much restricted by the Brown Act as it exists today with only 4 members. We need to discuss this among ourselves.
I would just suggest that Brown Act access.
Our friend. Well, in a way it is, but it also means it puts on terrible restrictions on us because of the size of our committee.
And Mary,
We can't get together easily to talk about things.
the geologists are accustomed to getting together in a group and discussing freely, and that's very
So
difficult.
bring your budget up to 7.
But- Yes.
I'd be going to decide among itself where we're going.
Okay, well, what we do have, you're right, but what we do have is already approved. We have 7 members already approved.
Yes, I know.
Okay,
that.
and we have the Monday meetings already approved, okay. But the committee, I mean, Bob is now a member of the committee and he has really good informal training in geology, but isn't a, was never a practicing geologist. So that's one. Well, I mean, how are we going to discuss this if we don't right now? I mean, one
We
possible.
need quietly to discuss it, right? Those of us who've been on the committee for a long time, we have seen what the committee should be. We have our own ideas and we have to share our ideas. I think we should put this topic on. How do the rest of you feel? Gary, how do you feel about this? Yeah, I think. Now. Get our hooks out. Geology.
I don't know, so we all.
Time. So can we say that you'd like to actually professional geologist. Geology. I don't know, potential person.
Does it need to be a resident of, is in Portola Valley? Okay.
It doesn't need to.
I thought it had to be within the sphere of influence for a committee. Solidera, Los Trancos, Portola Valley. Yeah,
It's up to me.
okay, I would like to see Troy on the committee, and I absolutely agree with Gary that the seventh position should be filled by a professional geologist. Good.
Troy, we will do.
Okay, I have a question for Troy. If you look at the worksheet on page 6, the handout, the work project. Yeah, do you see anything there that looks interesting to you? Do you see anything on this page, second column, our proposed work plan, basically, that looks interesting? You don't have to answer right now, but if you could just take a look at that and think about it. Yeah. Okay. No, not yet.
Before we adjourn, we can open. Anybody in the public who wants to ask us questions about the topics that we have discussed. I don't know if there's anybody out there who would like to talk to us, but this is an opportunity for the public to address us. If there is no one who wishes. And I think we can ask if we are ready to adjourn. Somebody propose that?
Second.
We yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Well done.
Thank you.